I have open cases in every state except Alaska.
That was the director of the FBI revealing the frightening news that his agency has opened cases on suspects who may be tied to ISIS in 49 U.S. states. Here's more from James Comey on the Islamist threat inside America.
We are focused keenly on who would be looking to travel to join this band of murderers, who will have come back from Iraq and Syria to the United States. We have open cases all over the place focused on this threat, and so it is not a New York thing, it's not a Washington thing. It is something we focus on throughout the FBI.
Eric, are you surprised by the candidacy, the transparency of the director saying that 49 states, that's really an alarming statistic?
Alarming, yes. Surprised by the candidacy, no. Happy that he's being as open. Remember he did a 60 Minutes interview a couple of months ago where he outlined some of the things that they are doing. And what it did was it made a lot of people realize how important what they do is. All the tracking that they're doing, all the cyber tracking that they're doing, I think it's fantastic. At that time, and I agree now, I still say they need all the money they need, and we should continue to give them that, fund whatever they want to do. It is important to note that some of the areas that are the most vulnerable, our southern border, I don't care what you say, people are going to say this is a right-wing talking point. It really isn't. Our southern border is vulnerable. People coming into Mexico and crossing the border, terrorists possibly, and also our ports here. New York ports are very, very wide open. So it doesn't surprise me they have open cases.
All right, Dana.
Well, in the page 3 of the Wall Street Journal today, there's an article. If you believe that, then I think that, and I think most people would agree with what you said, then we have to tell Congress that we want them to reauthorize the Patriot Act. The FBI today, the other story is on page 3, Wall Street Journal, is saying that they are very concerned that a portion of the Patriot Act, which is the 215 letters, which you'll know about, Kimberly, this is the controversy that erupted after the questions about surveillance. And this is why this is a topic now and why it's becoming a heated one in Congress, except for I hope that maybe what Comey is doing is trying to be as transparent as possible about the problem so that he can say, please don't take away one of the tools. All this tool does that they're talking about is, for example, let's say at a diner, they know somebody used a credit card, and they go to that diner and say, we need the record. The diner is not allowed to tell anybody that they've given the record, but that record allows them to track back to other financial transactions to try to connect the dots. If we do not allow the FBI to continue to have that authority, we will have done America a great injustice.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. All right, Greg.
Well, I mean, Comey said that there were, 49 states, and I believe Obama said, well, at least it's not 57. So that's the high point about it. This isn't the only issue that we're facing, though, not these Western terrorists. So the Western terrorists are often the most competent ones. They're the ones that have pulled off most of the grisliest crimes. The Western-trained ones are the ones that come from the West. But it's the media, government, academic complex that focuses on certain kinds of hate which are directed against the chosen, aggrieved group in America. So they happily ignore real hate, the kind of hate that results in death. For example, Islamists hate us, they bomb us. However, we are told, as Americans, to mind our pronouns, to watch our language, for fear of creating some sort of Islamophobic atmosphere, which is obviously absurd. We have a fifth column right now that is protecting evil under the accusation of Islamophobia. Lastly, I would like to point out that anybody who ever thought that Snowden was a hero should be rethinking this right now, because he went after the very same programs that we are using to go after these.
He made the programs obsolete.
Yes, he did.
So in some ways, we're starting
brought back here and tried.
All right, let me get Bob.
I'm sure with this, if you listen to all what Comey said, the thing I'm not worried about as much, that they really don't have connections directly to ISIS. There's people in their basements who are putting together bombs and doing other stuff, and they're very difficult to track. I'm sure he sent out a directive to every one of his 54 officers saying, we want you to begin to look for people who might have a problem with this. We might have a problem with. And I think it's very much like what Hoover did with Germans. He sent a directive to all of his FBI officers saying during World War II, let's look at Germans who are suspect. Good thing to do.
I just think that it's important that we try to understand what the experts are telling us of how these Western jihadists are recruited. Let's say that you're a 17-year-old Westerner and you're kind of intrigued and you maybe do a little internet search. ISIS is so sophisticated that they can figure out a way to connect with you, and they take it offline to their little secret internet area. That's why people are frustrated with companies like Twitter, and well, I shouldn't say people are. There are some people in law enforcement and that are dealing with violent extremism that are frustrated with companies that are not willing necessarily to cooperate as much as they would like to try to help us find out these guys are in the basement, because it's fine to kind of dismiss that, but one of them could be successful.
Well, they're the most dangerous.
Yeah, they are. They're
harder
actually
to track.
doing quite a good job. And don't knock down people who happen to work in basements.
All right, well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about what's happening right now in the world. We have a country of Jordan that is rallying around their king, that is showing leadership and is decisive and is waging this war against ISIS. Very determined in his focus and strong in his rhetoric. These are some comments from our President of the United States, our Commander-in-Chief, at a prayer breakfast today.
And lest we get on our high horse and think this is unique to some other place, remember that during the Crusades and the Inquisition, people committed terrible deeds in the name of Christ. It is not unique to one group or one religion. There is a tendency in us, a sinful tendency that can pervert and distort our faith.
Was that a part of the apology tour on behalf of ISIS sold out in
Here's
all
the point.
states? Yeah.
President Obama is absolutely right. However, he's talking about the 1100s. That's his defense. He had to find an example from 1,000 years ago. A guy was set on fire 2 days ago, and our president says, well, you know, we did bad things 1,000 years ago. He needs to leave the White House and go back to a sit-in, because that is pure grad school activist lunacy, relativistic BS. It's absolutely embarrassing. Meanwhile, we have the real Air Jordan fighting flying sorties. It makes him look so small.
Well, you know, the problem was, I mean, historically, we say is the worst time in the world to say it. I mean,
yes, that's what it is.
The timing of this is unbelievable. The other thing is, I'm going to take something back here to my friend Eric. I noticed that Jordanians flew over 100 sorties in the first day out. And found targets, apparently. I hope they were targets. So I probably underestimated the number of targets there were for us to hit. So
we're going to get Shep in the next block.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes President Obama will say something, and it kind of percolates a little bit, and you wait. And all of a sudden, a couple of days later, everyone kind of realizes what he said. When he said those comments this morning, the hair on the back of my neck stood up, because I know this is one that's going to go down. That's going to follow him throughout the rest of his presidency and throughout his legacy, because he didn't just go over the line. He pole vaulted over the line on that. He went back, as Greg points out, 1,100 years, whatever it is, and used an example of Christians, and then in the same breath kind of explained why we need to at least consider what the Muslim terrorists are doing, killing people, beheading people, burning people alive. To mention those in the same statement reminds me of when that NBC analyst, remember Chris Kyle? There was this whole issue, and he said something like, well, some would say Chris Kyle was probably racist.
And on killing sprees.
And went on killing sprees. Well, just by saying that, you put those two together. President Obama now has put Christianity with radical Muslim Islamists who are burning children, killing children, burying them alive. This will haunt him for the rest of his life, I think. I'm just appalled. Bob, you have to at least say this is one he really stepped in.
I just did say that, but I also think that you keep in mind the audience was the most evangelical Christian gathering of any place in the year. If there was one place I would decide not to make that statement, it would be there.
Do you want to say? Okay. The fact that there are some Muslim spokesmen who opposed the burning of the pilot on religious grounds is not comforting at all, because it implies if their religion had allowed it, so would they. So when he's talking about problems, he's got to focus on the contemporary radical Islamic element and the fact that Islam is okay with it. And don't bring in this other garbage.
He's making excuses. I'm going to get Dana.
I'm sorry, Dana.
No, I'm good.
One quick observation. He will not, President Obama and the administration will not say Muslim extremists. They just will not put those two words together. Yet, they'll say Christianity. He just indicted the whole Christian faith from 1,000 years. It was something that happened
Kind of did.
Yes,
I
he
don't know,
did.
Bob. I don't know.
I would
he didn't
say-
talk about certain groups of Christians.
you're
Yeah,
right.
but this is the same president that said if Muslims come
true.
under attack, that he will stand with them. So, I mean, this to me makes actually
He could
perfect
say
sense.
Christian.
I
He's
know.
like Marilyn
He
Manson.
was getting-
He can burn a Bible, but not a
what the right thing
Quran.
to say here was that back 1,000 years ago, Nero burned Christians on the way into Rome, right?
Yeah.
And look at that. Look, now we've got these terrible people doing this, and the Christians were persecuted.
Yeah,
So
but he just doesn't get it.
Kind of
He
reminds
keeps
me
talking-
of, I'm just going off the top of my head here, but you know, Bob, you say that in relationships, one of the things that drove you crazy when you were married was getting into an argument with your wife and then issues from the past
Yes.
would come back up. I mean, it's like that. I was like, well, 1,100 years ago,
Yes.
you did not pick up your socks.
Yes.
But this is the president, too. Keep in mind that after an American was beheaded, James Foley, he went and continued laughing and carrying on about his day. 12 minutes later, golfing.
6.
When you six.
6
Okay,
minutes.
well, some dispute
yeah,
about the
matters.
time.
you have the whole indictment down.
That's the problem here. So, I mean, it's embarrassing. He doesn't seem to be taking this seriously. And the juxtaposition, but yes, Bob,
Okay.
between our president and King Abdullah is really
I
just
agree with that,
remarkable.
but I wouldn't say he wasn't taking it seriously.
Well, he's not taking it seriously enough.
I wrote a piece that's up on FoxNews.com on this because it infuriated me. And I ended it with the line, and I had to change the line because they thought it was too outrageous. People thought it was too much, too far, going too far. I said, and I'm going to say what the line is now. It says, after all, Mr. President, you're a Christian too. I changed it to that because originally it said something else. I'm not going to say what it said originally, but
All right, that's not.
no, but I can be. I have to say, to stand up in front of Christians and indict the whole Christian faith the way he did today, as a Christian, as a practicing Christian Catholic, I'm outraged.
I just think
Outraged.
that I'm not defending his words because I disagreed with them, and I thought it was the wrong timing if he wanted to be philosophical and give us his worldview. But I do think that he was not trying to indict all of Christianity. I think he was trying to be a history professor.
Right.
This is what he does. This is how
But you know
that's how
what?
he tries to explain to us and to reason with us as if we were in the classroom.
Well, great. Now we got stuck with a community organizer / wannabe professor. Where's the commander-in-chief? Anyone else want to apply? I mean,
He's
this
flying
is
sorties in Iraq right now.
Should he stay away from this breakfast? This has not been very good for him over the years, has it?
Oh, it's done.
It's the most important meal of the day, though, Eric.
All right.